Welcome back to another video about the Friday the 13th game. Now, if you hear anything else in this video, that's just because I have people here, but anyway, this video is about Roy from Part 5. Now, I've actually made a prediction a while ago, predicting we would get Jason X and Roy, but we actually got Jason X and young Jason. And I've seen a lot of people saying, well, Roy wouldn't make sense because, well, he's not really Jason. He's just somebody else pretending to be him. And all that. And while I can agree he's not the actual Jason, in my opinion, he works better, way better than the young Jason. As the young Jason seems to be very complicated to use because that one didn't really do anything in the movies to really have much to use, and to come up with ideas like I had to do for my video on the young Jason, I really had to stretch things and come up with ideas on how that kid vision could work. Roy, on the other hand, could work pretty easily, since in the movie he did take a pretty big injury to the chest and he still kept trying to kill people, similar to how Jason was doing that. Because from Part 2 to Part 4, that Jason's completely human. He had very little supernatural things. Yeah, he had some survivability to him with the axe to the head, but other than that, he didn't really do much other than getting hanged. Of course, he survived that too. But Roy, he survived a really big hit to the chest, I think from a gun, but my memory's pretty shady. But Roy knew what he was doing. He was a good killer, and he killed quite a few people. I'd say he had a good amount of strength, too, since he held off the chainsaw with the machete. That's no easy thing to do. But, overall, here's what I'm getting at. We might still get Roy. Might. Here's why. So, Friday the 13th, the game, Gun Media released a trailer a while back announcing the new game mode called Paranoia. And you can see there's the 8 people, 7 counselors, and 1 blue. Now, the blue is iconic for Roy's hockey mask, when he pretended to be Jason, because that's the only hockey mask in the series that had blue instead of red. Every other hockey mask in the series had the red lines on it, as that's the one Jason wore. But the only mask in the series that had the blue lines was Roy's, who wore it in Part 5. Another thing that hints at we might still get Roy is what happened at the end of the trailer when it said, coming soon, hashtag, who is 5 with the V. Now, I'm sure everyone and their grandmother knows what V stands for. It's the Roman numeral for 5, it's even in the word 5. And Roy was the killer in Part 5, when Jason was still dead. As most Friday the 13th fans know, he died in Part 4 and came back in Part 6, so someone else had to be Jason in Part 5, and that was Roy. Because his son died, he went off the deep end, and he just started killing people, dressed as Jason to have an alibi. But with this heavily hints at Roy. Plus, there's also one more piece of evidence. In the Friday the 13th, the game Virtual Cabin, when people get to see the Jason X and the kid Jason, I noticed one thing that not many people really noticed, and that was the cases. Now, there's a case for every Jason, including the new Jason X and the young Jason. However, I noticed next to the other side, there was enough space for one more case. Nothing there, just a little barren spot, nothing really to put there. And it looked a bit odd to me, because the complete rows were all there. They could have easily just put the 2 other cases at the end of the hall, just next to each other. But they put young Jason at the very beginning, right to your left when you go down, and Jason X at the end, which leaves a big spot to your right when you go down. This could easily be used to put Roy in, should they be wanting to throw people off, or when they update the game and they add Paranoia. Now, the Paranoia game mode, they might add Roy to play as. And in this mode, Roy might have to use more stealth than Jason because he's still normal human, but that didn't stop the other Jasons. And that won't stop the young Jason either. So this one you might have to use more stealth. You might actually be able to pose as a counselor, or other things like that. However, this is still much of a stretch, but still it's an idea because there's enough room for another case, which has room for another Jason should they want to sneak that in there. Because, let's just be honest, no one was really expecting the young version of Jason because, like I said earlier, that's going to be very hard to implement into the game. However, if we do not get Roy, the biggest idea I have for Paranoia is something like the Gmod murder games that you see. You see YouTubers like Vanos, H2O Delirious, etc. play the Gmod murder thing. You have the innocents, and then you have the murderer. Sorry about that, like I said, I have people here, it's near the holidays. But, yeah, Paranoia could easily be something like Gmod murder, where you have the innocents, and then you have the killer. Give me a second. But, yeah, like I was saying, it's probably going to go like the Gmod murder thing, where there's several innocent people and one murderer, and you have to figure out who the murderer is and stop them. Now, in Gmod murder, one person has a gun, one person has a knife, so neither one really knows. The killer's gonna know who it is, but none of the innocents are gonna know. So it's probably gonna be like, everyone picks their counselor, then it randomly picks who's supposed to be the murderer. It has everyone kinda on edge, you know? So that's probably how it's gonna go if Roy is not in the game. So if Roy is in the game, then it'll just let you play as Roy, probably give you a different game mode where you have to be a bit more stealthy, or you have to dress like Jason in certain parts to get a kill or whatever. Or the game mode is more or less one of the counselors becomes the killer, and you have to kill everyone silently or make sure you try to get everyone killed. Everyone goes around to pick up a weapon. The killer's probably going to want the axe or the gun. Personally, the gun is a one-shot kill, but the axe has more hits to it. But if you miss the gunshot, you're kind of left open. So it's really a thing of wanting to pick what you want. But that's probably how Paranoia is going to work. But do I think we will get Roy? I honestly think we will, because again, even though he's not on the DLC map, there's still that room for that one case that just bugs me wrong or gives me the wrong idea. Now, could I be wrong about this? I'm pretty much solely basing this off of a functionality purpose and the fact that we have enough space for one more case in the Jason room in the virtual cabin. Now, I'm going to say one more thing. The chances of us getting Pamela are 0. I say this now because at a panel that the Friday the 13th and Gun Media had, they said that Pamela would not be used in the game as playable because the actress died, and they felt like getting anyone else to play her would be wrong. And I kind of agree, it's something out of respect for the character and the actress. But with Roy, we could easily get that done. All it would need to be is just a different change-up with the mask, and it would work. His strengths would probably be, he can run. He's probably going to be fast in the water because he's alive, therefore he can actually swim better. And something else. Maybe weapon strength. But his weaknesses would be he is easily staggerable, he has bad grip strength, and, maybe a bad sense. Yeah, that's probably be what Roy's things would be. But, yeah, people saying that Roy wouldn't be useful in the game because he's not scary or he didn't have anything special about him. He was pretty much almost as special as Part 3, and he was definitely more special than Part 2. Because if you watch Part 2, Jason was really sloppy in that movie. He had to rely only on stealth to get any kills, and when he actually had to fight, he was horrible at fighting. He kept messing up everywhere he was. Roy, at least, did the same thing and was actually still fighting. Jason Part 2 went down with a machete of the soldier. Roy got hit bad in the chest area, but still survived and kept trying to kill instead of run away. So, honestly, Roy can easily fit just as easy as, well, any of the other early game Jasons. Part 2, Part 3 and Part 4, Roy can easily match them. So, yeah, I mean, Part 4 is pretty much a reskin of Part 3, just with a different weapon. Roy could easily be the same, just with different strengths and weaknesses for that one. His is just, he's a lot easier to be staggered. And who knows, maybe if they add Roy, they actually give him some health, so after a massive amount of damage from counselors, he can actually die, not the traditional way you have to kill Jason. By getting the sweater, getting Tommy and all that, you won't have to do that. All you have to do is just hit him a bunch of times with some powerful stuff, and Jason will drop. Well, Roy will die. And, that would be that, and maybe a special cutscene where one of the male counselors, or any of them really, walk over and pick up his mask and turn around with a knife. Just for a little cutscene like how it ended in Part 5 when Tommy jumped out of the background with the knife and nothing came of it. Just a little Easter egg to the ending of Part 5. But does this mean we will ever get Roy in the game? Honestly, I do think Roy isn't coming in the future. Even though he's not on the DLC map, maybe we might just get him, because the DLC map, it's not following its order at all. It had a pretty much schedule-based time for it, but it's kind of skipping around on that one. We're getting different things here and there. So, it says 2 more Jasons. We got the Kid Jason, we got Jason X. That leaves Roy out, and I understand what people say with, it's not Jason, he doesn't fit. That didn't stop people from wanting Pamela. The game isn't called Jason the Game. It's called Friday the 13th the Game. That's the primary part of this video. So let me explain that before this video ends. Everyone seems to get upset at the thought of Roy being included because he's not Jason. He wouldn't fit. But yet we have young Jason, who is way less usable than Roy, because young Jason we know very little about. Am I saying I dislike the fact that we have young Jason? Not at all. I love the fact that we're getting the young version. We can finally see what he was able to do as a child. Was he a skilled killer when he finally came out that lake? Maybe. We don't know yet, but it's up to the official game we have right now to tell us when he comes out. But this also means that Pamela could easily be used, but then would people be complaining that Pamela's in it, though she's not Jason? No, a lot of people wanted Pamela. But we won't be getting her because of, again, the actress died and they don't want anyone else to do it. But what I'm trying to get at here is, just because you're not Jason doesn't really mean anything. What matters is that you were a killer in the franchise. And in the franchise, there were 3 killers. There was Pamela, then there was Jason, then there was Roy, and then there was Jason again. And Roy is pretty popular amongst people. He gets a lot of credit to his name. Take for instance the pop vinyl figures made by Funko. They have a normal Jason pop, and then they have a deluxe version where it's actually Roy. They have shirts of Roy, they have action figures of Roy. And everything. Same with Pamela and Jason. But Roy has his own fair share of fame. Though he easily gets overshadowed by Jason, as he should, as Jason is the mascot. It's why Roy looked like Jason or dressed like him, because it was his alibi. But do I think we're going to be getting Roy anytime soon? No. I honestly feel like this is going to be a DLC way down the line after all their initial DLC are planned for. Because here's how I think it's going to be. They release, sorry about the noise you hear out there, again, holiday, families here. But here's how it's going to probably be. They're going to release Kid Jason, Jason X, order doesn't matter, get everything done, and then right at the end, they release Roy. That way we have technically all of the Jasons, I use quotations with that one, that fit. So let me know what you think.